US artist Nia Kitura Kalun is recording history in the making with her paintbrush. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson may not be officially serving at the pinnacle of the legal profession yet, but her historic nomination is already inspiring thousands. A mural in Northwest Washington, D.C. honors the 51-year-old who was confirmed by the Senate last week.
Do two things. I wanted to celebrate this momentous occasion while still honoring a really nuanced past, right? So a lot of the mural is very dark because it's representing we had to get through a long period of oppression to get to a black woman being on the highest court of the land. But there's a rising sun coming from the east and it's shining directly on her because it's a brand new day and I'm really excited about that.
The mural project is a joint effort between the She Will Rise, an NGO campaigning for a black woman to sit on the Supreme Court, and No Kings Collective. The local artist who created the design insisted to pay tribute to Jackson's history and the history of African Americans.
So if you look at the two green lines behind me, one represents the east coast of America and the other represents the west coast of Africa, and the journey that she and her family took figuratively and literally to get to where she is. She talked about going from segregation to the Supreme Court in one generation. And so there's a lot of sharp, jagged shapes that represents the glass ceiling that she had to break through to get to where she is.
The mural was inspired by the black arts movement of the 1960s and 70s, as well as African imagery. When it is completed, it will show a young Ketanji Brown Jackson with her father, who is a lawyer. The first black woman who served as federal judge, Constance Baker Motley, will also be depicted. Jackson will replace Justice Stephen Breyer on the Supreme Court once he retires next summer. The party of former Burkinabe ruler Blaise Compaoré urged all citizens to support national reconciliation. On Friday, the leader of the CDP, Edi Kamboigo, called Burkina's daughters and sons to resolutely embark on a journey towards true reconciliation to advance in the fight for development. The party therefore chose to back the transitional authorities. Kamboigo's statement comes after the historic Sankara trial. Blaise Compaoré was sentenced in absentia to life in prison for murdering the Pan-Africanist icon in 1987. The former ruling party regretted calls by Compaoré's opponents, who asked the authorities to not consider presidential pardon or amnesty. Lawyers representing the Sankara family demanded former President Compaoré be extradited from Ivory Coast to serve his sentence. Could African students who fled the war in Ukraine be allowed to pursue their degrees in France? About 20 French universities have recently registered their first applications by African students. The UNESCO estimated in 2020 that 61,000 international students were enrolled in Ukrainian universities. If EU countries have taken measures to grant an up to 1-year temporary protection to all students from Ukraine, these sub-Saharan students who arrived in Belgium denounced an unequal European policy that could shatter their education dreams. Indeed, some EU countries demand non-Ukrainians to prove they are unable to return to their country of origin in a safe and sustainable manner in order to stay. If France launched last month an initiative to help Africans whose studies have been disrupted by the war, associations accompanying affected students question the duration of the temporary protection status. They urge the French Foreign Affairs and the Interior Ministry to enable those who want to reside and study in France. In the University of Strasbourg in the east of the country, 29 non-Ukrainian students enrolled. Even if they come from Francophone countries, they shall take French language courses starting next May. According to the French Agency for the Promotion of Higher Education, International Student Services and International Mobility, France was the first host country to sub-Saharan Africa in 2018, with more than 50,000 students welcomed. Chanting "There is no justice in this land" and "Justice for Patrick," dozens of protesters gathered Saturday in Grand Rapids, eastern USA. The death of the 26-year-old Congolese American ignited the protests against racism and demands for police reform. Patrick Lyoya was killed by a police officer during a traffic stop in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, on April 4. Prior to the shooting, he appeared to be wrestling on the ground for control of the officer's taser in a video recorded by the passenger in his car. Yoya's death is the latest in a grim litany of black unarmed people dying at the hands of the police. Patrick Yoya's parents said they had fled war in DR Congo only to have their son killed with bullets in the United States. Their lawyers want the officer who opened fire identified, prosecuted and fired from the police. He's been placed on paid leave pending the state investigation.
I'm tired. I'm fed up. I'm disgusted.
The Congolese Prime Minister condemned what he called a cowardly assassination. Patrick Yoya leaves 2 children and a grieving family behind. In South Africa's port city of Durban, 2 races against time have started. On the inland front, rescue operations continue, and on the shore front, scores of volunteers are picking up debris and broken reeds. A trail of destruction was left on the famous Umhlanga beach. Adults and children are now trying to clean up ahead of an expected surge of Easter holiday makers.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating, and my kids surf here like every weekend, and so it's heartbreaking to see the beach like this.
It's a mammoth task. It's a long way to go, but as you can see by the number of people we have around us here, they're all banded together. This is just one beach of 3 other beach cleanups going on concurrently.
With hand gloves on, workers and volunteers rummage through the jumbled piles. They can find brooms, mops and even household utensils, which they sort out so that debris don't add up to ocean pollution.
Well, if you think about it, at the moment we've got such devastation with plastics and that in our oceans. We're basically killing our oceans, and if we don't look after the oceans, we won't have a beach to appreciate in future years to come, and neither will our children. So it's important that people are educated to get the plastics out of the beach, stop the microplastics in the sea and the pollution that's killing off our oceans.
The Umhlanga beach normally attracts surfers and tourists thanks to its warm Indian Ocean waters. But before they can return, volunteers continue to fill up numerous trash bags. The floods will impact KwaZulu-Natal's economy, which performs in sectors such as tourism, manufacturing and agriculture.